Now, these are some of the soft skills that you need to know as a business analyst, apart from the knowledge that you have as a business analyst. The very first skill is your negotiation skill. Now, what is negotiation skill? So negotiation skills helps you in terms of facilitating negotiation, develop resources, and most importantly, to avoid scope creep. Now, when you negotiate, it's not like that everything, whatever your customer says you have to blindly accept those things. You have to negotiate on that part. Negotiate as in you need to understand why the customer is asking for that particular functionality or for that particular thing. Only after then you would be in a position to decide, okay, this is something that we can prioritize, or this is something that we can consider for our requirement purpose, or we can actually take up as a requirement. So negotiation skill is very important for a business analyst in order to initiate a discussion, deal with the situation, uh, come to an agreement. Like I said, you would be getting different stakeholder from different background, wherein you have to negotiate for a particular requirement. So you cannot say a particular stakeholder he is right, or a set of stakeholder that they are wrong. So what is the middle way out over here is understand everyone's perspective, rank their expectation, and basis on the ranking you go about by deciding a solution. So that is where your negotiation skill plays very important role. Second soft skills that you need to have as a business analyst is active listening. Active listening as in you cannot ask your customer to repeat the same thing again and again, because they are our business sponsors, they are our stakeholder. So it's very important that after conducting any sort of meeting, whether you are conducting an interview session or requirement gathering session, make it a habit that you prepare a minutes of meeting wherein you clearly highlight what all things have been discussed, and send it across to the forum who has attended the meeting, whoever have attended the meeting. And in the bottom of that email, write that whatever is missing, please feel free to add it. So this is a good way of handling missing information. So if you just listen to a particular meeting and do not take an action after the meeting has ended, then you would be in a big trouble. You have to validate whatever thing has been discussed, because whatever you are discussing in a particular meeting, that is more of a verbal, and there is no place of formality for verbal communication in IT industry. So always make it a habit that after conducting a particular meeting, send a clear and concise minutes of meeting to your respective stakeholder, that these all things have been discussed, who has agreed on what are the action items that are there on whose bucket, clearly mention it, and at the end of that email clearly mention that feel free to add anything if in case missed. So that is the way you can avoid missing information. So active listening is important to collect business requirement, quality internal client service, and gathering status reports. So these are typical scenarios wherein you would be using active listening skills. So more importantly, you have to listen to what they are saying. You have to pay attention, look at who is talking, do not talk, ask questions, follow direction, visualize what is being said. It's not like that you are listening to your music and you are just listening it for the sake of listening. You have to visualize it. If someone is saying, okay, on the click of right menu you would get this option, under that option you have to click on this thing, you have to visualize it, okay, how the system is currently and what he is expecting and what he is saying. You have to visualize it. And if possible, if your organization permits you to record a specific meeting, always go with that option. So typically these days, every meetings that you conduct with stakeholder on a geographically distributed project are always being recorded. So always make an habit to record those meetings, so that it would come handy for your reference when you want to refer it on a later date. So that is the checklist that you need to do. The third is dealing with conflict. Like I said, you would be having multiple situation wherein you have to deal with conflict, like managing the deadlines, boosting team morale, effective communicator. So these are some of the scenarios wherein you have to deal with conflict. Now conflict may happen between two developers. Two developer as in one developer says that his approach is right, the other developer says that his approach is right. So you as a business analyst needs to understand and bring them together onto one page and understand whose situation or whose solution is more viable in the interest of the business. Depending on that, you have to deal with the conflict. So that is the third skills that you need to have. So conflict may not always happen at a junior level. It would also happen at a higher level, wherein you have to explain something to your project manager and you just give up. This shouldn't be the case. Whenever you are conflict, handle it professionally. Do not try to be hyper at that time, because as a business analyst you have to stay high on patience, because these are some of the common situations that you would come across when you start working as a business analyst. When people do not listen to you, that doesn't mean that you would give up everything. You have to deal with the conflict. You need to understand why this conflict is happening, and then you have to act accordingly. So your first what I would say activity to deal with conflict is it should be like explaining and investigating what is the reason behind conflict. So that is something that you need to do. Now, fourth is quality client service technique. So as a representative of the IT community, providing quality client service to the business users you support is critical to your job. Now, as a business analyst, customer is a king, and your what I would say performance is completely dependent on how satisfied is your customer. If your customer is not happy, that means you are not a good PA. So you have to look through the opportunity to make your customers happy. That doesn't mean that you would accept anything your customer says. That is not the right way to make him happy. The right way to make him happy is, if that is not feasible, what he is asking, what are the possible solutions that you are giving to your customer? What are the alternative ways that you are giving to your customer in order to resolve a particular problem? That is what it is expected when it comes to quality client service. So always ensure that your customer is happy with your solution or with your inputs. So that is the fourth skills that you need to have. Fifth skill is decision making. So you would come across various situations wherein you have to deal with alternatives, uncertainty, high risk consequences, complexity, interpersonal issues. So you have to be in a good position to make a decision. So you should have all your checklist or a matrix well prepared in advance, in case this risk arises in your particular project, how you would go by making a decision for that particular project. So that is something that you need to take care of when you are applying decision making in your as a soft skill. So you have to consider decision matrix, whatever is appropriate, and any defendable decisions if there are any. Next comes your problem solving. So you have to be very good in terms of solving problem. You have to first identify the problem, then define the problem, what it is, then explore the problem, take a necessary action, and look back at if something is missed in that particular problem. So typically we use a technique called as 5 whys. 5 whys as in why this thing happened, why, if that thing happened, then why this thing happened. So in this way you would come across a level deeper. For example, a production issue occurred in a production environment. Now, why this production issue happened? Because the developer didn't code. Why the developer didn't code? Because the BA gave incomplete requirement. Why the BA gave incomplete requirement? Because the customer asked the BA to write that requirement. Why customer asked the BA to write the requirement? Because the customer was not clear about that requirement at that particular time. So the problem here is the customer who didn't give the proper requirement, not the developer who coded or not the BA who documented that requirement. So this way you have to uncover a level deeper, so that you get the exact root cause about why this thing happened and who is responsible for it. Now, having said that, who is responsible, it isn't intended to blame someone that he is responsible, rather to propose a mitigation plan if something of similar nature happens next in near future. How can we mitigate it? So that's the ideology behind why we do 5 why analysis or do root cause analysis. So in order to apply problem solving, you would always need 5 whys or root cause analysis. So having said that, 5 whys, it's not always 5 whys. It can go up to 7 whys, 10 whys, till the time you don't get an answer to the problem. Next is strategic thinking. So you have to always think out of the box. You have to learn, you have to you have to anticipate, you have to think critically, you have to interpret what is being discussed, you have to apply your decision, you have to align your decision with what you are thinking, and you have to constantly learn about what you are doing. So these are some of the things that you need to do as a strategic thinking as a business analyst. Although you are not expected to apply this soft skills at this point of time, but sooner or later, 5 years down the line, you would be needing this skill set as well. Eighth skill set is technical writing. Like I said, you have to align your document as per the audience. If it's a technical audience, then FSD is the document. If it's a business audience, business requirement document is the solution from your side. So you have to align your words or wordings as per the audience, like how those kind of audience would able to interpret what you are writing. Like we saw, we had a BA communication package wherein we created a checklist of what set of documents needs to be shared with what set of people. So similarly, technical writing enables us what kind of language we would be using for what kind of people. So that is something that you need to consider when you are applying technical writing as a soft skill. Next is presentation and public speaking. Very important. Whenever you are working as a BA, it is expected that you are very good in terms of presenting your idea and speaking in public. So if you have these two skill set, presentation and public skill as a soft skill, then you are the hot seller in that organization. You have to be very good in terms of presentation and public speaking, whatever you are presenting, idea or business case, whatever it is. The last skill is team building. So, in your team, not everyone is perfect. You would be having a mixed audience in your team. Someone would be fresher, someone would be very experienced, someone would be having attitude issues, someone would be having ego issues. So, you have to manage that team. You have to understand what is their goal, how you would collaborate, what is the necessary coaching that is needed if in case the audience is a fresher, what are the skill sets that you would like to develop for that particular users. For example, development team know nothing about domain of a particular project, so you need to develop that skill set for the development team so that they are well aware about the domain concepts for that particular project. So that is your responsibility as a team building activity. So these are some of the common skills that you need to have as a business analyst when it comes to soft skills. Any questions, anyone? So this is more about applying rather than reading it theoretically. Yeah. Okay. So example like we have discussed multiple time wherein multiple stakeholder do not agree upon one single requirement. So for some stakeholder, the requirements are high priority, and for some stakeholder, the requirements are of low priority or medium priority. So what we essentially do, we rank that requirement. If on a scale, on a particular scale, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, then we accumulate the overall percentage of that particular requirement. If it falls under high priority, then it would be categorized as high priority. If medium, if low, in that way. So this is one example of resolving conflict. Now, one more example of resolving conflict would be if in case there aren't multiple stakeholders, there is only one potential stakeholder, and that stakeholder is very arrogant. He doesn't respond to your email on timely manner. He doesn't respond to your queries on a timely manner. In this case, what you would do, how you would deal with the conflict? In this case, what you need to do is you need to understand why his behavior is like that. Has he lost confidence on your organization, or has he lost his confidence on the project? And if he lost the confidence, what's the reason behind losing his confidence? So there could be multiple reasons, like he may be not happy with the way development team is working on the project. He may not be happy with the status reporting part. He may be having issues with the your way of requirement gathering. So you need to understand and align your thought process around his expectation. So that is the another way of dealing with conflict. So there are multiple scenarios. These are some two general scenarios. There are multiple other scenarios wherein conflict might happen. It may happen within your team itself, development and BA clash, or development team or QA clash. So you need to understand the reason behind it before resolving it.